I'm Tim Enriquez. In today's video, we're going to talk about understanding car values. People don't understand the amount of money that they spend on cars. It's one of the most expensive things that you'll use on a daily basis, aside from obviously having a house. So we have a very simple formula to calculate how much money you're actually spending on a car. Okay, and this is math, so it's difficult to argue with. Here's the formula. Right, we want to see, did you get a good deal? And the most important thing is in the long run. It isn't just what you paid that day for the car. Okay, it's ultimately what it's going to cost you to own it. So here's the formula. You're going to take your total price paid. So how much did you pay to acquire the car? Then you have to factor in, what are you going to sell it for? You're either going to trade it in. If you give it away, obviously that's a zero. Okay, when you sell it to someone else, what did you sell it for? Then you want to add in unusual maintenance. There's no reason to factor in gas or taxes, things like that. You can factor those things if you want, and if you're debating against two very different cars, like I want an SUV or I want a Prius or something, then you want to factor that in. But I'm assuming you already know all that. You've come up with a type of car that you want, okay? You've got a car that you're ready to buy, so we want to understand then how much is it going to cost total to own. But you do want to factor in unusual maintenance. If your car is constantly breaking down and another car is not, you do have to factor that in. But things like gas, oil changes, inspections, everybody has to get that done. So that can just be, we can kind of assume that that is a constant. So once you take your total price paid minus your price sold, that's the overall price. Then you're going to add in unusual maintenance to that. So if you have to get a new transmission or something like that, you got to factor that in. That's the total cost to own. We want to look at this in a yearly ratio. So you're going to take your total cost to own, divide it by your years owned, and that's your cost per year. You can then, of course, divide that by 12 if you want to get your cost per month. That's useful if you're trying to compare it to a lease or something like that. So let's use a quick example. This is a hypothetical example. Let's say somebody spent 25 grand on a car. Okay, then later on they were able to sell it for $5,000. So they kept it for a while. They're going to sell it for $5,000. That, of course, is $20,000 cost. They had to spend $2,000 on unexpected maintenance. So now we're up to a cost of $22,000. They kept the car for 10 years. So this was a car they had a nice, good, long time. Okay, they ended up spending $2,200 per year, or $183 a month. So now the question becomes, okay, well, is that any good? Well, let's find out. Here's the scale. So when we come here, is that any good? Here's your price per year car scale. If you can spend $1,500 or less per year, you are doing excellent. Okay, you are saving a lot of money and that car is working out well for you. About $2,000 a year is okay. So that's where this example was. That was decent. They didn't get ripped off. It wasn't a fantastic deal. If you're spending $3,000 or a little bit more than that, that sucks. Okay, you need to do better research and you should do a better job buying your car. And if you're spending $5,000 or more per year in a car, you're retarded. All right, let's learn what we got going on. Let's stop wasting so much money. Let me give you a couple of examples that are more real life that I have done. So, and before we get to that, there's two ways to do this. You can go buy a used car that's kind of older, a little bit more of a beat-up car. Hope that it's reasonably reliable. You know, your Toyotas, your Hondas are usually pretty good. And then hope it holds up well. If you're able to do the maintenance yourself, that's fantastic. But let's face it, that's not really that fun. Who wants to be driving around in a beater car all the time? So there is another option. You can buy a nearly new car, a couple of years old, and then sell it before it loses too much of its value. Right? But things you're not going to want to do, you do not want to buy a brand new car. The instant you drive it off, okay, you're immediately paying for that depreciation. So it's just not worth it. And you don't want to lease a car. Leasing a car makes no sense. You're paying out the ass to do that. So don't do that. So here are some examples of things that I did to show you how this works. So when I was 25, I wanted to buy a Vet, right? Who doesn't love vets? Okay, so I was able to find a Vet. It was a 3-year-old, beautiful blue, basically perfect shape. Okay, 3-year-old Vet. I paid $25,000 for that. It had 24,000 miles on it. It was in excellent condition, almost like it was new. For those of you keeping score, I bought a 99 and I bought it in 2002. Okay. Then I later sold it for $18,500 in 2008. I put 72,000 miles on it. Okay, it was still in very good condition at that time. Okay, I was lucked out, did not require any unexpected maintenance. Obviously, you got your taxes and your gas and your insurance, but again, you got to pay that no matter what kind of car you're driving. Okay, so I own the car for 6 years, no unexpected maintenance. So we take 25,000 minus 18,500. That gives us a net of 6,500 for the total cost to own. I had it for 6 years, so that means I've paid $1,083 a year, or $90 a month. And again, this is to drive a brand new Vet. How did I do? Let's go back to the scale. Oops, sorry about that. Let's go back to the scale. That's excellent, all right? $1,000, and to be driving a Vet, this is not some old clunky Civic, okay? That's excellent. So you don't have to be driving nasty cars to get this done. Here's another example. I bought a 4Runner, right? In 2005, I bought an '02 4Runner, so it was 3 years old. I paid $16,500 for it, had about 30,000 miles on it. It was in pretty good condition. Okay, I drove that car for a while. I sold it in 2013 for $7,500. Had about 130,000 miles on it. So I owned the car for 8 years, lucked out as well. That car did not require any unexpected maintenance. So we're here, 16,500 minus 7,500. Okay, that cost me $9,000 total cost to own. I had it for 8 years, so that's $1,125 a year, or $94 a month. When you're in the $100 a month to own a car, that's awesome. Again, we go back to the scale. How do we do? Pretty damn good. Now, I don't always make perfect decisions. Okay, it's usually the car my wife wants me to get that ends up screwing us up. All right, but we also bought an MDX for my wife to drive. I paid $33,000 for that. It was a 2-year-old MDX, had 33,000 miles on it. I bought that in 2007. It was an '05. Okay, I then sold it for $9,500 in 2014 after putting about 100,000 miles additional on it. So we owned this car for 7 years. But this car also required a new transmission, plus a few other unexpected maintenance things, $4,000 in unexpected maintenance. So the total cost to own, it was $2,350 plus the $4,000, $27,500 to own. We had it for 7 years, so I paid $33.57 a year. That's $280 a month. It's getting close to your more standard leases there. That was not a great investment. Kept the car too long. Should have sold it noticeably sooner. But some people make even worse decisions. Let's use the example of the person who I bought the Corvette from. Okay, he bought that same car in '99. He bought it brand new, and he just told me he paid MSRP. I took his word for it, which was $42,500. Okay, then he sold it to me 3 years later for $25,000. It's 3 years old. It's not going to require any unexpected maintenance, but he spent $17,500 doing that just for 3 years. He paid $5,833 a year to drive that Vet. Yes, he was driving a nice-ass Vet. So was I. He was paying $5,800 a year. Let's see how he did. Oh, guess what? He was retarded. Okay, there's no reason to do that. I then took over the exact same car, and it's basically the exact same condition. 1 or 2 years older, but no big deal. And he just wanted that brand new car. He's paying 5 times as much as I was. If you do that over the length of any time, for a 12-year total, he would end up paying $69,996 for his car to drive that Vet for 12 years. Okay, if he bought a new one every 3 years, whereas I would only pay $12,996. All right, $57,000 difference just because he wanted to get a brand new car every year if you keep that pace up. So that's ridiculous. So how do we find deals like this? How can we go get good cars? Well, you got to stay tuned for the next video in which I'll explain the method to locate an awesome used car.